Hello cave dwellers, and welcome back to our VAXStation restoration series. In this, part 2, we'll begin the restoration in earnest and see if we can't restore it to its former glory. In part 1 we stripped the boards out of the system and discovered that nasty battery acid which had leaked from the real-time clock battery all over the case. Thankfully though, the damage was limited, and so we dive into the restoration by tackling that acid head on and trying to remove every last bit of it from the case. We begin by scraping off as much of that leaked battery acid as we can from the surface simply by scraping it off, brushing it aside and hoovering it up. And while the hoover's out, I took the opportunity to brush off some more of the surface dust and larger debris just floating around in the case. How then do we tackle the alkaline battery leak? We neutralize it, of course, with an acid. In this case I'm using vinegar. There's nothing special about it, it's just regular household vinegar. The trick is simply to let the vinegar do its work for some time and then get scrubbing. I'm using a toothbrush and, for the more stubborn bits, some metal wool. Make sure you've got your gloves on if you're trying this yourself. You're obviously working with corrosive and irritating materials that you really don't want on your skin. I repeated the process a few times, there's really no shortcuts to this, it just takes time and elbow grease to work through all of that alkaline material. But you'll get there eventually. For the harder to reach bits, I've added a bit of, yes, it's our favourite, baking soda for fluffy muffins. It reacts with the vinegar to just bubble up and get into those harder to reach places, as well as giving you something a little bit more abrasive to work with. At long last we seem to have got rid of it all. There is some lasting tarnishing to the metal, but that's the least of our worries. The fact is our circuit boards are now safe and won't be eaten away by that nasty battery leak. The leak also made its way to the underside of the case, so we took care of that using the same method. With the acid taken care of, I thought it would be a good opportunity just to give the case a thorough clean before we put everything back into it. We could also retrobrite the plastics at a later date, which I will do once I've proven that we can actually get it working again. So we'll separate the plastics where we can from the metalwork and give everything a thorough clean down. Unsurprisingly, the build quality of this machine just keeps on giving. The entirety of the front of the case behind the plastic bezel is a solid, sturdy chunk of metal. Right, let's take this through to the bathtub in the man cave ensuite bathroom. Oh yes, we've got all the mod cons here, cave dwellers. There's really nothing special about the method I'm using to clean this down here. It's just a combination of elbow grease and car shampoo. The reason I use that is because I don't want to introduce any extra salts to the metal. If you were to use your dishwashing liquid, for example, that would introduce some extra salts, so it's just a precaution I like to take. Once dried, I did find the area where the battery leak was had tarnished, It is, however, a lot better than battery leakage, so I'm going to leave that as it is, and if you have any suggestions to restore that, then please leave a comment because I'd love to hear it. This then puts us in a position to put everything back together and hopefully get it working, but not without some priority shipping of digital parts. Before we put the mainboard back in, there was the tiniest amount of corrosion on the corner here. It had worked its way up the mounting bracket and just onto the corner of the mainboard. I didn't spot that in the first episode. So we've just dabbed that off with some vinegar on the end of a cotton bud, and there was also some corrosion where the battery plugged into the board, so better to be safe than sorry and just remove that before inserting the board back into the case. With the mainboard back in, the SCSI controller clips in very satisfyingly to those clip mounts on the upper tray, and before we can return that to the case we need to reinstall those memory modules. 20 megs of RAM goodness. Okay, so it's time to fit our first replacement part. It's the real-time clock battery, the one that leaked everywhere. It's effectively just 3 AAA battery cells, and we'll give the original plastic holder a clean and install the new ones in it. Unfortunately, it's very brittle and it's already lost the 2 mounting points at the end, so we'll add a touch of hot glue on just to hold it safely in the case. After what felt like an age, our new power supply finally arrived. It's a slightly newer part model to the original power supply, and the layout of the boards is more refined, but most importantly, it fits. So let's get it installed. Just like every other component in this system, replacing parts is a joy. They slot in and out with the minimum of fuss. With our power supply installed, it's time for the moment of truth. Let's put the system back together, hook up the peripherals and the monitor, cross our fingers, and see if we've managed to revive this 28-year-old system. As you can hear, without a hard disk installed, the only noise comes from the power supply fans. At first, not a lot seems to happen, but then, slowly but surely, after a sleep of I don't know how many years, our screen flickers to life. So what does this cryptic error message mean? If indeed it is an error message? Well, I don't know yet, but we've got a whole nother episode to find out. So why don't you join me when we'll try and get past this stage, install a CD-ROM drive, a SCSI hard disk, and of course an operating system in the OpenVMS operating system, which I'm looking forward to exploring with you. See you then, cave dwellers. Take care. Do you enjoy these videos? I hope you do. Why not leave a comment, like this video, and take a moment to click on my logo there to subscribe to my channel. It's great having you on board, cave dwellers. And while you're here, here's a couple of other videos you might enjoy. Take care.